So it's not about the nail in this case. Um, what an interesting video, right? I kind of want to walk us through it. So, as this woman is experiencing her emotions, and as we notice the nail, the the partner or the friend's response there is to immediately go in and fix it. And as part of that, for me, it seems like the woman is feeling dismissed and not seen and not heard. And so it isn't about the nail. It's about the connection, right? As the friend or the partner responds and kind of affirms that connection, like it must be really hard to have, shirts that are snagged or sweaters that are snagged or feeling that pain constantly. It must be really hard. And her response was like, yeah, thanks, right? So as we start to look at Mark today, I really tried to find a way to communicate kind of what's going on. And so before I get into that, I want to kind of share another aspect of this because while that framework from It's Not About the Nail really helps set the stage, I think it's important to apply it maybe more to our context today. And then we'll look again at the context back then and kind of compare a little bit. So in today's context, we're dealing with COVID. And I'm not even shy away from it. Like, I was asking Jesus earlier, I was like, Jesus, help me be able to explain how not washing hands and dishes and food and all the things make sense for today. Because in COVID land, that's all we're doing is washing our hands and distancing and following all the rules and doing all the things, right? Like, I I even put myself back to when we were first starting this back in the beginning of 2020, and we weren't sure, like, should we be spraying down our Amazon boxes? Like, I literally had a spray of bleach and something else. I think it was like diluted bleach to spray down packages and, touch things with gloves and all the we didn't know, right? Like, we were following all the rules. We were washing all the things that came into our house. We were cleaning the toilets like multiple times a day, and we were sanitizing the doorknobs and just anything that could be touched. I mean, I remember even coming in, like the first time I went out to the clinic where I worked during the day as a peer supporter, and I had to go in to go do something at the clinic, and I came back and I was petrified about my clothes. And I just, like, right at the door, like, I had a plan for my change of clothes. I was going to come in, take off all my clothes, take a shower, and then change my clothes. Like, no one was going to touch it. We're going to put it into a plastic bag. We're going to take it down to the laundry right away. I mean, it was like the rules that were applied to this. And as I look back now over almost a year and a half, right, like, that has changed. And the rules back then, while probably useful because we didn't know what we didn't know, also were incredibly fear-based. And over the first few months of COVID, I started to really recognize that the following of the rules became so important. Applying to those rules, complying to them, ensuring that they were met. If we didn't do them, go back and do them again, right? Like, doing the rules is what life became about. And in a mental health way, like, that became obsessive to the point in some cases, like, I became so fearful that if I didn't clean the doorknobs and the handles, I had to go back and clean them and make sure that I was, like, not contaminating anything or cross-contaminating. And I was getting angry at people literally because I was so afraid. Um, I have diabetes, I live with mental illness, and I didn't want it to compromise any of that, or my spouse and their, health concerns. So from a place of what I thought was love and compassion, I was really moving the needle well beyond where it needed to be. And so for me, what it really became was about the laws, about the rules. And as we remember from our earlier video, it's not about the nail. It's not about the laws. It's not about the rules. It's about what's in the heart. And so Jesus, our disruptor of all things, right? Our recenterer, our grounder in love, he gets asked this question by the Pharisees, who at the time are probably really pretty proud of themselves, like I was back in early COVID, of making sure all the rules were followed. And the audacity of other people to not follow the rules was intense, right? I would get mad at bosses for asking me to be in places that I just didn't feel safe, and they were not following the rules. And my spouse and I, we had long conversations about what was right and what was wrong as far as COVID. And in truth, we didn't know. We really have no idea. And sometimes even now, I wonder, do we really have the whole picture? I don't know, right? And in that reactionary, triggered, activated, trauma-brained mindset, I am observing everything that's trying to happen and discerning it through these rules, through the lens of safety. And in truth, is that really where I need to be 100% of the time? Is that really what this is all about? And so as these Pharisees come to Jesus, following the laws, sometimes I hear the phrase, the way things are, the way we do things here. You're not doing things the way we do things here, right? Like the rules sometimes feel safer than our connection to God. And so while Jesus does this kind of I don't know, a little shaming kind of thing at the bottom of Mark at the first section, he's like, oh, you're the guys that Isaiah was talking about. I get it. But you're missing the point of God's commandment. And that is that our heart is our connection to God, and yet our heart is the thing that's making all the trouble, right? The heart is creating all these rules and all these safeties and structures and all the hoops we have to jump through and all the ways things are and all the needs and the frustrations and all the connections and all the safeties, right? Like all of those rules are our heart trying to say, I need to stay safe. And really our surrender to the love of God and the love of Jesus Christ is what our disruptor in chief, Jesus, is essentially doing. And it's a hard thing to understand, right? Because it's so easy to see the Pharisees as completely right? Like we need to be washing our hands, and don't catch me thinking that we aren't. Like I'm washing my hands. And if it's all about that and we miss the opportunity to connect. So for case in point, I'm here at Terrell State Hospital recording this week. I just thought it's nice to see a different context of where I work and what I do out in the public on behalf of Gloria Day and the people. And I go from unit to unit, and we are wearing masks, and we are wearing, the face shields, and I am washing and putting gel on my hands all the time. And all of these frontline folks, which I know many of the folks that are in our community are frontline folks, are out there in the world doing what's needed, not just because it's needed, like washing our hands and, doing the gels and all the things, but because we want to put ourselves in places to connect with others. Right? So I'm here at Terrell State Hospital on the weekends because I really want to connect with other people. And I think that the work of being in connection with others brings what is God's commandment of love to the spaces where love is not always seen, heard, or understood. So at the heart of this Christian assembly is Jesus. And we find that in word, in song, in prayer. We see that in our neighbor, in the water and the bread and the wine. And Jesus recenters the questioning Pharisees of Mark today, of the lesson from Mark, and talks to the crowd to remember what God's commandment is. And as God's mercy washes over us, as God creates life anew, reshaping our hearts for works of mercy and love, preparing us to be those people who go out and be part of community, to bring love and hope to people who aren't experiencing that. Yes, we need to keep ourselves safe, and we need to be healthy to do that. And it isn't always just about that. God's commandment is love.